So you should have a handout which says Developing a Healthy Culture of Leadership Development. That's the one we're going to work through. You would have also been given one says Developing a Healthy Growth Dynamic. That's what I want to look at tomorrow. So if you've got that, please bring it tomorrow. And in some sense, if you're going to miss tomorrow, could I perhaps encourage you to go back and visit that one if you can? Because I think there's a lot of important things I want to deal with tomorrow that are, some really key things that if you're going to miss that one, it might be worth following it up. We are multitaskers. Our job is a multitasking job. It's sometimes perilously easy to read Acts 6 and saying, don't bother us about widows, don't bother us with all that stuff. We're just going to give ourselves to the word and prayer. No, to prayer and the word. and so that's my job. And the rest of it, just like it's getting in the way. It's not my responsibility. Leave me alone with my books and with the Lord, and then I'll come into the pulpit and tell the people what the Lord... But actually, that isn't what even happening in Acts 6. In Acts 6, those very men who give themselves to prayer and the word, it's because they've so organized the whole so that they can give themselves to prayer and the word. But it doesn't come easily. It doesn't come like, oh, that's going to happen anyway. It isn't even saying, look, this is the priority and the rest of it's frill. No. They have to so manage the whole thing that they make sure they are the ones that are bringing the word. So behind that bringing the word, there's a whole other set of responsibilities that are going on all the time, which you are responsible for. That's why an elder's qualification isn't just apt to teach. He also has to be able to manage his family well. And the word there's a very interesting word, isn't it? How can he take care of the church of God? And that word only comes up one other time. It's when, in the parable of the Good Samaritan, is take care of him. Take care of him when they were left with the innkeeper. So even in our qualifications, there's this combination of you've got to be apt to teach, but you've also got to be able to manage well, because in your job, you'll be doing both those things so that you get to teach and preach and all the other communication words. You have to know how to run this whole thing. And one of the things we have to do is to bring on other leaders. It's one of our responsibilities. We've got to bring on other leaders. We've got to empower others. And a whole range of others, not just other preachers. So it's interesting, isn't it? In 1 Peter 4, Peter talks about the three things that all Christians have in common. Quite interesting. All Christians pray. All Christians love, with a real love that covers over a multitude of sins. And then all Christians hospitable. Food is a sign, sharing food is a sign that you're a believer. Who would have thought it? But wherever you see it, you say, yeah, this is a sign. If I eat round the Father's table, I want to have a heart that shows that I'm reaching out to others too. They're the three things all Christians do. But then Peter says, and then there are some who've got word gift, make sure that happens. And then some have got deed gift, make sure that happens. Peter, as an elder, is giving instructions that word and deed are being done by individuals and at times being organized in the life of the church. That's your responsibility. Shepherding the flock of God, as we're going to see this afternoon later, is through God's word, God's voice is heard, and that's how our authority is not inherently personal. So we don't look for powerful persona, they've got this formidable presence. No, the authority is we have the privilege of bringing God's word. The authority is in the word, which we open up faithfully. And that's how God exercises leadership. It's not through big personas with strong characters. You may be that's fine, but that's not a requisite for the job. The job is you correctly handle the word of truth so that when you bring the truth, you have an open Bible. Everybody has an open Bible and can challenge. But when it's saying, well, where does this church stand? You say, well, the elders who teach the word authoritatively in this place, that's their authority. They teach through the word. But then they're also organizing to make sure that they do teach through the word. And the one we're going to home in on is this whole area of bringing on other leaders. Now, you see my notes here. I'm sorry, yesterday I prepared a PowerPoint, and I think it was a distraction. As I taught you, I think it was a distraction, so we sort of ditched it. If you want a PowerPoint slides to look up some of the references, come and see me, I can send them to you, okay? They were sort of pretty pictures of books, so that if you see the book, oh, that's the book I saw on the... So we've ditched that, okay? So I'm going to just work through this. First thing I want to say is this. From a very early age, I was told, almost been in leadership, a couple of months, when the leader who's mentoring me say, now, Ray, you've got to work yourself out of a job. That's one of your jobs is to work yourself out of a job. But I'm 26. Yeah, you start now. Because it goes fast. You are an interim leader. All of us are interim pastors. That's what we are. We're interims. There is one great shepherd of the sheep. He's the rock. He's the yesterday, today, and forever. And we are an interim. And when you embrace that, in some ways, it's a really healthy thing to do. My Bible reading this morning is 1 Chronicles 1. Long list of names, I know, if you remember 1 Chronicles 1. But actually, this is a majestic sweep of history, isn't it? And go, gosh, isn't my life tiny? Isn't my life tiny? I mean, it's just tiny. And once I embrace that, I go, yeah, that's really important that in my in tray, on my mind, is how do I bring on? How do I develop? What is my role in helping release the gifts that God has given to his church? And recognizing that if you don't wake up to that, you are planning for failure. There's an American book called Next. You see the reference there. And it's a book that describes transitions in a large number of large American evangelical churches. Most of them totally orthodox, not all of them. Some of them are kind of dodgy health and wealth thing. But most of them sort of solid evangelical churches, and nearly in every case it was done badly. Every case it was done badly. One notable one, the pastor of a large church in a southern an American state announced that he would be retiring in his 60s. But that kept moving, and he died in situ at 93. And he wrecked the church. And the book was the book basically says there is no simple solution to the transition, but if you don't do anything, it will go badly wrong. Look at this, look at these. And these Christians are not stupid Christians, they're not ineffective Christians, they're just Christians who thought, I'm here longer than I really actually am, and I've got to start planning for this earlier, and I need to learn this lesson early in my life. You give power away and you'll gain influence, or you hold on to power and you will lose influence, but you can't have power and influence for very long at the same time. So you better get used to the idea of empowering others. So when we talk about leadership development, we're not talking about delegating things that you don't like and that somebody else can do because they're just a minion. All right? You're saying, this is so important, I'm going to invest my best to enable you to thrive. I loved what Mike Ovey said, we want the next generation to do better than we have. We do everything we can to enable the next generation to do better than we have. What a lovely attitude. And that is the kind of, in a sense, when you wake up, I'm an interim pastor. I don't know how long I'll be here. I never imagined I'd be in one church for 40 years. My father's in the Royal Air Force. We moved about every year, 18 months, the whole of my life. And I said, okay, Bedford. And, you know, if you've ever been to Bedford, it's like, Bedford, it's all right. I was born just outside of Plymouth. Beautiful. Beautiful. Bedford, okay. It's not a uni town. I was an academic in my background. I thought that's where I was. And Lord, why can't I have a bunch of student Christians? Every kind of, well, I want you to stay in Bedford. I want you to see the church and grow in Bedford. And then 40 years goes like lightning. And all that time I've been working hard on, I'm an interim pastor, how do I pass on? And recognizing that actually, as you come towards that passing on for real, you really need to take it seriously in every way, for your own health's sake, Pablo Martinez, Pablo was headed up UCCF in Spain as a Christian psychiatrist. I heard him give a talk on retirement. He said 5 years out. This is just talking retirement in general. 5 years out, you need to start transitioning from getting your sense of worthwhile and significance from what you do as a paid job. You're still doing your job, but find something else where you begin to serve. So he said, don't think, oh, when I retire, I can play a lot of sport, or I can do this or do that. And 5 years out, begin to just move that sense of, I'm serving God and making a worthwhile difference from your work to something else. Now, the hard thing is in church, isn't it? So some of our folks, as they come towards retirement, say, I can do more work in the church. Of course, you can't. Not in the, if you stay in the, like I have, I've stayed in the church I'm at. I can't do more in the church than I used to. That would wreck the poor pastors who I passed on to. But equally, I can't go to another church and say, oh, hello, I'm Ray. I'm going to really commit myself, Pastor, to helping you. And you're like, oh, I'm sure you aren't. So it's a difficult thing. So pastors particularly, full-time Christian workers, you have to really think about this carefully. And if you don't wake up to it, it will feel like going off a cliff. And I have tragically met retired full-time Christian workers who a year and a half down track, they feel their identity's gone. What am I here for? I thought I'd paint the house. That took 2 months. What do I do now? Now, some of them say, well, I don't want that, so I'll keep on going. And this is a little thing. It's worth knowing this, isn't it? Because you can keep on preaching does not mean that you can keep on leading the church well. You can. Some guys actually hit their stride in their 60s. They're preaching great sermons. But the energy to oversee the whole thing, it just begins to go. You're like, oh, I love the preaching. But in some ways, that's the nice, easy bit of the job. It's not the easy bit of the job, but in another way it is. I said to one chap once, I said, it's all about conflict resolution, don't you? That's the job. Conflict resolution. If you don't love conflict resolution, and when you get into that age, you just find your horizon, your vision for what the church, how God might take it forward, like, oh, I don't want to be thinking of a 5-year plan. I'll just be happy if I'm alive at Christmas type thing, Now, we do need to give, and there are retired pastors who serve God very, very effectively in all kinds of ways. But leading a church in your mid-late 70s, I think is exceptionally demanding. And I'm not sure it's healthy in all kinds of ways. It may be that's the way God has led you. I don't know. But there is a lot of wisdom in that Levite thing, isn't it? 30 to 60. And there'll be kind of honorary roles, and there'll be all kinds of wisdom things you can do. But if you don't wake up to the fact you're an interim leader, it might be a headache. And even when you have woken up to that, you've still got to recognize this. Moody put it like this: I'd rather train 10 men than do the work of 10 men. That's really interesting, isn't it? Because as you put energy, human and divine as it were, into all that you do, things happen. They do, by God's grace. And then you find yourself a bit busier. But because you're a bit more capable, you can cope with the busyness. And then it gets a bit busier. But you're growing more capable. And so you're getting a bit... And after a while, you find yourself like, okay, it doesn't take so long now to get the sermons done. And I'm a bit more time management capable now, so I don't waste my time as I used to, and I'm okay, it's okay. But can you see what's happening? The more capable you are, the more plates that you'll be able to spin. And the trick is, I can keep on spinning the plates. But of course, they are going to crash, however capable you are. And then we'll get to that point where you go, if we have a marital breakup in the church this week, I don't know how I'm going to fit that in. If someone drops dead and I have a phone call saying, can you take the funeral? What's happening is you are becoming the cork in the bottle. The very capability and ability that God has given you, if you are not very careful, will lead to your own failure. The more successful you are, the more the danger will become that it will come crashing down. Unless you take a stand back and go, do you know what? It can't just be about me working hard. We've got to have a team approach. And I've got to help develop a teams of leaders. Talk that really, really challenged me here. You see it, the little note too. American, he describes himself as an evangelical Catholic. I met a lovely Christian guy who said, I worked with Patrick Lencioni in a business capacity. He worked for Southwest Airlines. Patrick has done some fantastic work with us. He's a lovely, devout believer, comes from an evangelical Roman Catholic background. He gave a talk called What's Your Motive? And he started the talk with this provocative line: I do not like the term servant leader. Sharp intake of breath. Pregnant pause. And then he said, because it implies there is another kind of authentic leadership, and there is not. All good leadership is servant leadership. The other kind of leadership is what he called reward leader. What is in it for you? He said there are loads and loads of very successful leaders out there, but they're reward leaders. Now, in the business world, the reward might be £100,000 bonus at the end of the year, share interest in the company that I've grown, a knighthood, an MBE. Look, forget, guys, you are never going to get any of that in your job, like, okay? Just let's make that. But what reward might there be? And they're very subtle, aren't they? It's nice to have people love you and pray for you. It's a good thing. But are you living for, is that creeping in? Do we need a platform to have a sense of God is using me? Now, you might think, no. But when you've been at it for 40 years, every week in, week out, it just becomes part of who you are and what you do. And when that isn't there anymore, what were you really serving the Lord for? I've got a dear friend at the moment. He's going over and over and over this in his mind. He's retired now, and it's troubling. Ray, what was I doing it for? Who was I doing it for? And Pat Lencioni's talk really kind of cut across that. But then he did something very clever. He said, no, so let's look at what a servant leader and a reward leader does in a lot of their time. And this is something that was really insightful. He said, a leader spends a lot of their leadership time working with small groups of people. Now, that's a really insightful thing. Because we church leaders think, well, I spend a lot of time one-to-ones or, with a couple, and I spend a lot of time in front of a congregation, and it may be you have a small congregation, maybe 30 people, it may be a huge congregation, maybe several thousand. But I spend a lot of time either in very, very small space, me and another, or me and my wife and another couple, or in this big space. He says, no, actually, leaders spend a lot of their time in small groups. Elders, staff, elders and deacons, trainees. You spend a lot, and he said, you see the difference between a reward leader and a servant leader there. You don't see it on the big platform, because a reward leader and a servant leader may both be good at the big platform. They may be both quite good one-on-one. But the servant leader recognizes that in the small groups, that is where they throw in their best. Whereas the reward leader says, there are more important things to get on with than this eldership meeting right now. Can we just get through this agenda? I'm writing an important book. That kind of thing. You see, the reward leader really finds these meetings irritating. And do I have to? And, come on. That kind of... Now, nobody would quite say it like that. Some actually might. In the secular world, they certainly would. Stop wasting my time. Now, Christians more polite than that. But is there a kind of, do I have to have this elders meeting? Do I need this staff time? Do I have to develop younger leaders? Look, the Lord has called me to preach. Hold on a minute. What's going on there? Lencioni says, actually, look at how the Lord Jesus poured himself into those 12. I mean, when you read the Gospels, in one sense, it's almost the crowd are just the background, aren't they? The background. You get so much more information about his interactions with the 12 and the 3. the kind of things he was teaching them. In one sense, yes, the Lord Jesus preached to the 5,000, but let's concentrate on the 12. You see, Paul, when you read Paul in the epistles, sometimes it's very easy to think, well, Paul, he's just that rugged individualist. But as soon as you read Paul carefully, you go, no, he's not. He hates being on his own. He is a tremendous team player. He doesn't like this kind of some of the last words he says. Come quickly. I don't like being on my own. Bring the scrolls and the parchments too. But, I felt very much alone, but the Lord stood with me. There's this very, very sense of I'm in a team. And it really hit me. I'm thinking, I spent in my early pastoral life, I spent a lot of my time trying to improve what I did in the public sphere, the big, and quite a lot had to learn how to listen better in the small, but I didn't spend enough time. I didn't understand how important it was. It's to work with those small groups of people, leaders, potential leaders, small groups, beginning to develop them so that the whole thing could work better than it would have been if just working with me, working hard. And when Lench put his finger on that, I thought, ouch, that really hurt. Because I know I sometimes find myself in meetings thinking, this is a waste of my time. I've got a really important book to read. I've got an important sermon to get ready. I've got somebody I've really, really got to see. But once I sort of recalibrate and go, no, actually, this is how God grows his church with lots and lots of teams, working in teams. In the book of Acts, you see the 12 working as a team. You see the deacons working as a team. You see Paul working in teams everywhere he goes. Of course he works as teams. Because the lovely thing about a team is, together, everyone achieves more. The team is not just me and my lookalikes. It's me and people very different from me. And together, we shield one another from one another's weaknesses, and we can achieve things that none of us could do on our own. So, number 2, how do you develop other leaders around you? Now, this is there's all kinds of passages we could look at. We could have looked at 1 Timothy 3 and the qualifications for eldership. We could have looked at Titus 1. But I heard someone do this. Now, look, I know in Luke chapter 5, this is not... There's a lot going on in this part of Luke. So I know this is not the only thing on Luke's authorial intention here. There's a lot more going on. But nevertheless, this is an insightful, because this isn't a kind of formal appointment process. But it's an insight to the Lord Jesus working with and beginning to develop and bring on leaders, servant leaders in his church. Now, we haven't time to work through it in detail, but I asked a group of pastors just a couple of weeks ago, what would you say number 1 requirement is for the job you do? And it was very interesting. Without them knowing what I'd got down here, they hadn't seen this. They said, got to work hard. Immediately, 3 of them said, got to work hard. I thought, that's interesting, isn't it? Got to work hard. The Lord Jesus, see, you know how the people were crowding around him, but that's the backdrop. The emphasis is on this interaction with Peter. And there were 2 boats there, left by the fishermen who'd been washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the shore. Just think about that. What's Simon been doing? He's been working hard all night. Now, we're told a little bit further in the text, he's caught nothing. A complete waste of night shift. He's tired. They're washing the nets before they have a well-earned rest. If you've been fishing all night and caught nothing, you'd be frustrated. If you weren't frustrated, you wouldn't be human. You'd be like, what a waste of time that was. You could easily feel like that. He could have easily said to the Lord Jesus, look, I know you're not a fisherman, but anybody can. You only got to go out 20 yards. You row your own boat. This is not transatlantic navigation, is it? This is like a few yards, no, I'm tired. Because at this point, Simon isn't aware, is he, who he's talking to? He isn't aware. This is in one sense, a very human interaction. In one way it is, isn't it? As you can see, as it progresses, Peter snaps into like, oh my goodness. But the first thing the Lord Jesus asked him to do, would you do a mundane task? Would you just do a mundane task? In other words, wise insights. A pastor said to me, he said, Ray, if you want to look who are going to be the next leaders in the church, look for the people who pick up the hymn books at the end of the service. Now look, that is really dated, isn't it? Some of you youngsters saying, what's a hymn book? But he said, look for the people who do the mundane jobs without having to be asked, just serve because they serve. A lot of what we do is just like that. It's just serve. There's no clap, 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 well done. There's no kind of public, it's just serving. He said, look for the people who just do the jobs that need to be doing without having to be asked or told or commanded, but just do it because they serve. And Peter passed that test. Now, wouldn't it be scary if you knew, if Peter did not know that the Lord of glory, in one sense, was just assessing whether he could be part of a servant team in the future. There was no, you better be on good behavior today, Peter, you know the examiner's coming today. This is the driving test this morning. We're going to see how you do in terms of going to lead God's church. None of that. He just done a long night shift, and the Lord Jesus asked him to row the boat out, and he did. He was willing to serve. He was willing to work hard. And the second thing he was willing to do is willing to obey orders. And it's interesting, isn't it? Do you read missionary prayer letters? Do you sometimes read between the lines? Between missionary prayer letters? What happens in missionary prayer letters? Missionaries are always falling out with each other. That's the subtext, isn't it? So many times, and missionaries have fallen out, and it's put nicely, but you think, I think there's been a clash here. And why is that? Because you've got two hard-working people, but neither wants to obey. They're hard-working while it's what I want to do. But actually, church teamwork depends on us being willing to do what we have decided we're going to do, which it may not be what I wanted to do. There's got to be a willingness to obey orders. Put the boat out. Now, you see how Peter struggles with this a little bit, doesn't it? Peter, put out into the deep water, let down the nets for a catch. Simon asks, Masters, we worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But notice this, but because you say so, I will. Because you say so, I will. And when you see that in somebody, you go, this person can be trusted. Mark Green, Mark Green's written quite a lot of book on, Christians serving at work. And he said, I remember a boss once said, I don't want you to talk to any of the secretaries on the way in. I want you to come straight into my office. And he said, I really bristled at that because I like saying hello to the people on the way in. I said, hello, Mark, lovely to see you. But the boss said, I don't want you to do that. I want you to come straight into the office. I did as I was told, and the boss said, you've passed the test. Because I now know I can trust you. If I ask you to do something, I can't always explain why, but I need to know I've been able to trust you. The fact that you did as I asked you shows that I can trust you with things far more important than saying hello or not saying hello to the secretaries on the way in. And in some ways in church life, there's sometimes you can't always explain. You've got to trust me in this. Could you just do it this way, please? Or can you phone that person right now? It's really important. There was a time not long ago when I was away, and one of the men in the church was dying, and a lady phoned up some of our staff workers and said, could you go and visit him in hospital? And they said, I'm a bit too busy at the moment. And guys, no, he's dying. You always go. It was like, guys, don't you get it? This is like, I've told you this kind of stuff before. When somebody says, please, can you come? That's a request. It's not a request. It's almost would you obey that order? Come now. Then he gives glory to God. That's a really important one, isn't it? See, we don't want all the glory, but it's so tempting to want some of the glory, isn't it? That little, there is no I in team, but I can find a me in there somewhere. You know? Was that? The Office, wasn't it? No. And sometimes in teamwork, it's so easy to say it's about us. But I want to just make sure that you know it's about me too. We need to be able to kill that off, don't we? We need to be able to rejoice in all that God's doing. This is an astonishing thing. Peter didn't say to the other fishermen, hey, he chose me, you suckers. You got the wrong boats, guys. You should have been in my boat. Look who I've got in my boat. Look what we've got. Isn't that ugly when you see that? When you see human conceitedness and vanity and needing some kind of other people to lord you, what did Peter? He fell at Jesus' knees. Go away from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man. It's almost as if the great Isaiah experience in the temple when I saw the Lord is now here on a lake, and the invisible is visible, and I've just seen the glory. And I am not worthy to be involved in any of this. I am astonishingly unworthy. We need that, don't we? I often say to the most dangerous person in the church is me. I can wreck this church in an afternoon. I only have to lose my temper once in public, and I can destroy a lifetime of ministry. Folks, I am the greatest sinner that can do the greatest damage to this church. Please pray that God would still nevertheless keep me from my sin and promote his honor and glory through someone like me. If you don't know that, you're a dangerous person, aren't you? Whereas Peter gave glory to God. And then Peter was willing to live for that greater vision. Isn't it lovely? You can go and catch fish, or you can come and catch people. Which one do you want to do? And we have been called. All callings are honourable, but what a calling to be involved in that. I sometimes say this at home. We're part of a team that puts people in heaven. We're part of a team that puts people in heaven. What a calling. And Peter's willing to sacrifice. Now, we need to see the contours of what servant leadership looks like. Those heart attitudes, that willingness to serve, that willingness to obey the Lord Jesus, that willingness to trust and follow and honour him. Those are really important character qualifications. Somebody asked the question yesterday. In ministry, the volume button that gets turned up is not primarily on your giftedness, but it will be on your character. Your patience will be tried, your willingness to love the unlovely. That the difficult calls between what is the right thing to say, what should not be said. Those are really challenging things. And if you don't know what good servant life looks like, you won't be developing servants in the church, will you? So Luke 5. Then model it yourself. Not only you need to be a lifelong learner yourself, keep on working at these things, but you need to model it in your teams. Now, I've put a thing down here called soft skills. And I've kind of learned that some skills, like we can learn the technical skills, we can exegete the passage, we can learn how to communicate more effectively. They're really important skills to learn. But there's some of those things that that make such a difference that you can't quite put it in writing, but you know it when you see it. So one of my friends is a doctor, and he said, how do most people see their doctor? You're in the waiting room, the buzzer goes, you see your name, you go into the room, and they say, I'll be with you, and just sit down, I'm just finishing on their, that's most people's experience of meeting their doctor, okay? He said, what I've done for many, many years is I get out of my desk, I walk into the waiting room and say, Mrs. Smith, come on in, lovely to see you, come now. And he says, even as she get up, I'm already in doctor. I'm looking at I'm looking at her gait, I'm giving her eye to eye, and I notice how she's walking. And when she sits down in my room, she knows she's already got my full attention. What does that do for me and her? It builds a bond. It's a soft skill. You can't write that in a magazine and say, this is what you must do. But you know that when somebody does that to you, what a difference it makes. He said, two of the most important times in a meeting, when you're in a small group, do you know what the two most important times are? Hello and goodbye. Hello and goodbye. How many times have you gone into a meeting and you're a bit late, they don't know, 3 red traffic lights and a baby who needed a nappy doing, and your wife was out with the other kids just at that moment, and you've come in Over there, Evans. Kind of that. Nobody says that. You're kind of like, oh, crumbs. Oh, no, I'm in trouble. But he says, what? I always say, oh, John, so glad you could make it. Sorry you got held up. Don't worry, we're on item 2. I'll fill you in later. You make everybody welcome. That welcoming people into a meeting, even if they are late. And then when someone says, look, I've got to go early tonight. Okay, yeah, well, anyway, let yourself out. He said, no, always get up. Say, oh, thank you for coming. Come on, let me see you off. Tell your wife I love you to bits, and I love her to bits, and we've been praying for you, and have it. Over many meetings, when that's how you lead the meeting, you would not believe how helpful that is to. It's a soft skill. Now, there's all kinds of soft skills in leadership that you can't quite write down in a book, but if you can pick up some of those soft skills and model those soft skills. And you need to understand that many times in church life, what goes wrong is a lack of emotional intelligence. But if you helpful book, this one, again, Pat Lencioni wrote a book called The Ideal Team Player. The Ideal Team Player. He talked about 3 qualities: hungry, humble, smart. Hungry, humble, smart. Hungry, work hard, do more than you're asked, help your colleagues out. Humble, don't need praise, don't need recognition, don't need your name in lights, doesn't matter if you get overlooked, you're not bothered about that. Smart. This is interesting. He doesn't mean clever. He means emotionally intelligent. I understand myself and I manage myself appropriately, and I understand others who are different from me, and I deal with them appropriately. And when he wrote that, I think, do you know what? That is where so much leadership in church goes wrong. And then Lencioni actually describes the feeling. He said, when you've not got smart, if you're not emotionally intelligent, you leave people feeling used. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have picked up that all over the place. He used the phrase, accidentally diminished. You didn't go out of your way to make them feel nothing, but that was in the end the feeling. And there are Christians all around the country, through a lack of emotional intelligence from their leadership, who kind of feel, I think I was valued while I was part of one of your schemes. But the moment I said, we're moving, you dropped me. Or when I said, I've got to leave the team, I've got to do this now because something else is, my mother's really ill, I can't serve any longer in the music team, your face dropped. And I thought, I'm valued while I fit in with your scheme. Accidentally diminished, all over the place. And the moment he said it, I was thinking, I didn't even know this was a thing. I kind of know when I'm on the receiving end of it, but how many times have I been on the giving end of this? When I've got people excited about something that I'm passionate about, and they're part of them fulfilling my vision for what I think God is going to do. Oh dear. Now, the lovely thing is you can learn to grow. You can grow in emotional intelligence. That's a great thing. You know some of those profiling things like Myers-Briggs. Have you ever done anything like Myers-Briggs? Let's take that for a completer finisher. Like what? Forever? Is that going to be me in heaven? I enter into heaven. Well, oh, he's a completer finisher. For a whole of eternity. Oh, can't I be something else, please? Whereas the lovely thing, what Pat was saying is, look, you can grow in humility. I hope we should be. And we can grow in our ability to serve. And we can grow in our understanding of ourselves and managing ourselves and understanding others who are different from us. And that is vital for good teamwork. I referenced something there. I think called 5 Voices. You may have come across that. You can website it. It's just a tool to understand that we're different from one another. What makes us excited, the kind of style in which we speak, very different. And that's vitally important for good teamwork. And then a reference just there to a book called Illuminate by a lady called Nancy Duarte. One of the important things that teams do is help facilitate change. More about that tomorrow. But facilitating change. Do you know how to lead change well? Do you know how to get a team to lead change well? Do you know what goes on when things get changed? Do you know what goes on when things get changed? You've got to wake up to that one, because it's one of the most important things. The church does not stand still. It's constantly on the move. Things are always changing. And this is what change is like. It hurts because it's a grief reaction. When you change, you lose something. And when you lose something, you often feel, oh. And sometimes you go, ah. Grief observed. Lewis. He knew he would be sad. He didn't know he was going to be angry. Because losing something is both a sorrow and an anger. And in church, guess where the anger gets channeled? And you see this in hospitals all the time, don't you? If you're a medic, you'll know this. There's a terminal cancer, and the patient dies, and the relatives are furious with the doctor. And the doctor's been doing their level best to keep that patient well. But grief hurts so much that you direct the anger somewhere. And it happens in church. You change anything, and somebody goes, oh, and a few go, mm. So change is about a feeling, and you need to know, how do I lead that? When I know that the sorrow and the anger is going to come, because every time you change something, that's what happens. And I go, nobody told me this. I thought as long as they could see it was biblical and it was right, every Christian would sign up for it. Then I realized, no, they don't. So leading change well. Very briefly. Good team dynamics. Could I commend to you the book, 360-Degree Leader by John Maxwell? The thing that really challenged me in Maxwell's book is the importance of leading up. Leading up. Not just leading down, leading the team that I'm trying to help, but also leading up, letting others know, like, we nearly had a pigeon in, didn't we there? Thanks for fighting. Otherwise, you'd have been watching the pigeon the next quarter of an hour. Leading up. Who are you accountable to that you lead up well to? And as we bring on other leaders, we need to teach that skill of leading up and leading sideways to others. Very important. I have a thing called a care plan, how to lead a good team well. I haven't got time to look at it now. You can find details of this. Email me and I'll tell you a bit more about the care plan. And a guy called Scott Belsky wrote a book called Making Ideas Happen. Now, I read this book about 4 years ago, and I wish I'd read it 40 years ago. Well, it wasn't written then. He wasn't even born, I'm afraid. But his point is this. He said, look, many Christians don't think they've got any good ideas. You go to a conference like this and go, the other guys have always got the good ideas. Oh, I'm stupid. He said, no, that's not the problem. The problem is you don't know how to make your ideas happen. And I go, do you know what? You're right. Our eldership used to get together. We'd have a discussion. We'd agree on something. I would write the minutes up. I would even print them out. Then I would get a highlighter and highlight, John, you said, and I would send it to John. What would happen? Absolutely nothing. Why? Because John does what I do with letters like that. I put them on a pile. And if they're on that pile long enough, they eventually go out of date. That's how many of us work, isn't it? We kind of leave it long enough, it'll go away. So our elders would talk, and I meet so many eldership teams, so many teams go, yeah, we talked about it and we've referred it to next month. And they've been doing that for years. And Belsky says there is a way to stop that happening. But I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to ask me afterwards. And then finally, you've got to make plans to take 2 Timothy 2:22 seriously. You've got to take 2 Timothy 2 seriously. I've met many pastors. I have not got time to pass on. I haven't got time, but that is part of the job. You've got to make time to pass stuff on. And that to do that, as Nick was saying, you've got to plan for it. It won't happen merely by accident. You've got to plan for it. You say, well, I haven't got any gifted person, and there's no gifted people in my church. Friends, you're not trying to find another you. Make it here. You're not cloning yourself. You're developing them. They may have very, very different gifts from you. In fact, the younger generation don't want to be you. You've got to develop them, not clone you. And take a leaf out of Paul's book. It is a fascinating thing, isn't it? Acts 15. Have you ever wondered what it would have felt like to be in a fly on the wall when Paul and Barnabas had that? I don't want to call it a bust up because that kind of demeans it, but that would have been a bit heavily charged, wouldn't it? I mean, son of encouragement meets the Apostle Paul, and they have such a sharp disagreement. Ouch. And you could have thought, Paul would have thought, that's it, I'm done with young men. Look, John Mark let me down, and now I've lost my best mate Barnabas, all over a disagreement about, let's forget young men, it's just not worth it. It's just not, you are not worth it, young men. You're a waste of space. I'll just do my ministry. No, you don't see that at all. In fact, the very next thing you do is you see Paul investing in another young man. It means like, it's not an exact science. We're trying to give our best. We're trying to develop, and it may or may not. Who knows what the Lord is going to do. But here's another young man. Come on, Timothy, come and join me. Just remarkable. If you just try and put yourself in the emotional context. That must have hurt. But it didn't disillusion Paul. Paul is saying, no, this is really important. We've got to keep on investing our very best in the next generation. And we want to do the very best we can. Have you got on yours this, have you got one of this in your, have you got this leadership grid? I found this exceptionally helpful. This is from Crosslands. Jen Charteris gave me this for free, as it were. This is really helpful because it just helps you understand the kind of parameters with which you're working. You go, look, I am not at the moment training someone to lead a system. I'm just trying to help this disciple lead themselves so I can do some leadership development. For this young disciple, I remember John Stevens telling me about their ministry trainees. We spent the whole of the first year getting them out of bed to get to the 9 o'clock meeting. That was leading yourself. 1 year of the 2-year apprenticeship, okay. And then head, heart, hands. What does this disciple need that I could invest in? I may only have one. I got a friend down in Cornhill who said, I got one young man, I'm investing in him. I said, well, good on you. That's great. And I wouldn't be surprised if God entrusts many young men then. Because if you've got a heart for one, then God could give you more. And you look at that grid and you go, okay, I can't do all of those, but I could do something. I could develop some emotional intelligence. I could help someone lead some teams. And as I do that, what I find myself doing is back to Moody. I'm training 10 others, not doing the work of 10 others. And what we find then, as a team, we're developing a training culture where it's just normal to keep on bringing on people and giving them responsibilities and empowering them and enabling them to succeed. And they're doing stuff in church life that I can't do it. Maybe they're taking a women's outreach work, their guys' outreach work, youth work. They're doing something I can't do. But because they're doing, the whole team, the whole church is achieving a lot more than ever me working like a maniac. And as that develops, I get to do the stuff God has especially gifted me and called me to. So that I do get to the prayer and preach thing, but the whole thing is working a lot better now because we've just taken that step back and going, do you know what? We've got to train these leaders of 10s and leaders of 50s, and in a big church, leaders of 100s. That's what Moses was told by Jethro, and he listened. And the work of God went forward. I wish I'd known a lot more of this when I was your age. It took me ages to work all this stuff out. But by the grace of God, began to see bringing on others and a whole range of things and really entrusting them and empowering them and teaching them how to lead their teams well. In the end, we were whole. Do you see that adage at the beginning? If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you've got to go together. And in the end of the day, I'm the turtle, not the hare. I'm just a Carey said that. Hallelujah, brother. I'm a plodder. So I'm a plodder, but we've plodded a long way. and we plodded a long way together because we tried to develop a culture of leadership development rather than saying, I'm the leader, do as I say. Does that make sense? Can I close in prayer? Father in heaven, again, I'm very grateful for the patient attention of my brothers and sisters here this afternoon. I pray things that would help them, you would work into their hearts and minds, things that remind them of how the Lord Jesus poured himself into that team of his so that the church could flourish when he was gone. By the power of his Spirit, armed with the gospel of his grace, but equipped by that careful leadership development that he showed so patiently with those men. Please may we mirror some of that with others. May we be patient, gentle, but nevertheless clear as crystal about seeking to release all the gifts you've given to your body so that it might serve you well. Thank you for one another, and we commit each other to you now in Jesus' name. Amen.